With Overwatch being a game where you have the ability to switch characters on the fly, people tend to talk about being versatile in your hero pool, and while being versatile is good, is it ideal for climbing the ladder? In this video, I'm going to cover the advantages and disadvantages of one-tricking, filling, and the in-between. At the end of the video, I'll give you my suggestions of which style I think is the best for climbing and why. I encourage that whether you agree or disagree to leave a comment as to which style you think is the best and why. So let's get started. The pros of being a one-trick pony include that you know the ins and outs of your heroes, so chances are that you're going to have a strong carry potential. You'll have the ability to play around your counters very well and possibly even come out on top in some of these matchups. You also know all of the matchups, so you know how to play against the flankers and the DPS and the tanks, and you have far more knowledge about your hero than other players will have. The cons of being a one-trick pony include that if someone picks your hero, you probably won't do very well filling, and you're basically screwed, and it's especially bad when you enter games with more than one person one-tricking a specific hero. So for example, 2 Mercy one-tricks on your team, which I'm pretty sure all of us have experienced at one point. You're also not very versatile. It can limit you in terms of knowledge, knowing more about other characters. You can't pick characters that'll fit your team composition. Even if other heroes are more suited for the situation, you can't really switch to the required hero, and it can be a little bit boring for some people to play one character, but I guess that depends on your preference. So basically, if you were to be a one-trick pony, you would end up being a player that in theory would be very good at one character, but very linear in the sense that you can't change heroes. Changing heroes being a one-trick would most likely end up being more harmful than helpful, as you wouldn't have any advanced knowledge or practice on any other hero. Being a one-trick pony can also be difficult if the hero you're one-tricking gets buffed or changed in a way where everyone wants to play it. You'll probably find yourself in some games where your teammates lock it in and they refuse to change heroes. When you run into situations like this, your team is at a little bit of a disadvantage right from the get-go, assuming that the other team isn't in the same situation. If you're looking to be a one-trick, I would advise that you pick a character that you like, as it's pretty much going to be the only character that you're going to be playing. You could take the meta into consideration, but even characters that aren't exactly meta are going to be one-tricked all the way up to top 500. Next up are flex players. The pros of being a flex player include that you can play for the team composition and that you're versatile. So what this means is that if your team is lacking something like a tank, well then you can play it. Need another support? Well, you got it covered. If your team needs a hit scan, well that won't be too much of an issue, you can just pick Soldier 76. You can pretty much just play what the team needs. Chances are that you're also a strong team player, so since you know how each character functions, you'll know what your team wants to do and you can work together to accomplish your goals. The cons of being a flex player is that chances are that you can't carry as hard. You can probably hold your own weight, but you probably won't be doing any hard carrying. Chances are that you'll mostly be getting roles that no one wants to play, so in some metas you'll probably be playing a lot of support, and some metas you'll probably be playing a lot of tank. You might be able to get DPS a few times, but I feel like that throughout Overwatch, people are always going to want to be playing DPS. And if things start going wrong, you're going to be relying on your teammates to carry, which isn't necessarily the best thing to do in a solo queue environment. You don't really know anybody that you're playing with, so having to rely on them to carry you is not necessarily a smart thing to do. As a flex player, you would end up being a player that looks to pick the best heroes for the given scenario. You aren't really going to be someone that will consistently carry the game, but you'll probably be able to pull your own weight to the point where you aren't that big of a liability to your team. Playing this way, you would think that it would make games better, right? Well, in a sense it does, because your teammates will have more opportunities to play their role, but at the same time, this now puts you in a position where you're relying on others to carry the game when things start to go wrong. You could very well run into a trend where you find yourself playing the same character over and over again, and at that point you're sort of transitioning into a player who mains a character. The pros of being a player that mains a character include a small hero pool, which means that you have lots of experience on a set of characters. You won't run into the issue as often where you're forced to play a hero that you don't have experience on. You're somewhat versatile, and you have opportunities to switch in the event that the enemy has a team that hard counters the current character that you're playing. The cons for people who main a character is that they can't fill for every single situation, and I suppose that it can get boring depending on your preference. As someone who mains a character, you aren't a one-trick. Generally, as someone who mains one character, you'll have backups in the event that your character isn't optimal for the situation or someone else wants to play your character. Your backups will be characters that you have had experience with, and not just random characters which you'll be picking that are necessarily the most optimal for the situation. So for example, if you're a Mercy main and you run into another player who OneTricks Mercy, even though you might be a Mercy main, you have other characters that you can play. So you can main Mercy and have Lucio as a backup support, or maybe play something like Diva or Soldier 76 if needed. You'll of course still want to be playing Mercy as much as you can, as it's the character you're the best with, but you won't be completely useless if you happen to run into a situation where you can't play her. It's taking a bit of the goods and bads from the previous playstyles. So now that we've gone over the 3 ways of approaching the ladder, which one do I think is the best? Me personally, I think maining a character is the best choice. The main reason being is that I think switching is really important in some cases. I also think it's important to have a lot of experience on characters, since it allows you to think more about the game. Instead of thinking about very basic things like how to use your abilities effectively, you can instead focus more on positioning and the enemy team, their team composition, and what ults they may have. While I was making this video, the topic actually reminded me of a Bruce Lee quote. "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." Anyways, that's the end of the video, so if you'd like to see more Overwatch related content, then subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!